Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Combating Cancer. My name is Gwen Kelly, and I'm your host. If this is your first time tuning in, I just want to say welcome. Thank you so much for being here and for being part of this community. For those of you who are new, a little bit about me. I was diagnosed with stage 3 astrocytoma brain cancer when I was 19 years old. And the reason I created this platform is because I wanted there to be a safe, honest, and heartfelt space for people whose lives have been touched by cancer in any way. Whether you are in active treatment, in remission, caregiving for someone you love, grieving someone you've lost, or simply trying to understand how to better support someone in your life, this space is for you. Because cancer does not just affect the body, it affects your mind, your relationships, your sense of safety, your identity, and the way you look at the future. And today, I wanted to come on here and share something a little more personal. And I know what you're thinking, you always share very personal things, but this is a little bit more personal. This episode is really a life update, but is also a reflection on how much life can change in 4 years. It has now officially been over 4 years since I first found out I had brain cancer. And even saying that out loud still feels surreal, because when I was first diagnosed, I truly did not know what my future was going to look like. I didn't know if I would make it through a year. I didn't know if I would make it through the next few months. Honestly, there were moments where I was so overwhelmed by the fear of it all that thinking too far ahead felt impossible. My world became filled with appointments, scans, uncertainty, and trying to survive something I never saw coming. Everything changed so fast, and for a long time, my life felt like it was measured in survival mode. So to now be sitting here 4 years later, recording this episode, it honestly feels emotional in a way that is hard to fully put into words. There is so much gratitude in it. Gratitude for God, gratitude for the people who prayed for me, gratitude for my family, my friends, this community, and for every single person who has walked beside me through the hardest moments of my life. When you go through something as life-altering as cancer, you realize very quickly that you do not get through it alone. And I know with everything in me that I would not be where I am today without the love, support, and strength that has been poured into me over these last 4 years. But with that gratitude also comes a lot of reflection. Because one of the hardest parts of being diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, especially at a young age, is how much it changes your relationship with the future. People around you are making plans, talking about next year, talking about 5-year goals, talking about weddings and homes and careers and all these exciting milestones. And meanwhile, you're just trying to make it to the next scan. You're trying to make it to your next appointment. You're trying not to let your mind spiral while you're waiting for your results. Your life starts to feel like it's lived in increments, scan to scan, appointment to appointment, 3 months at a time. And for a long time, I felt like that's all my life was. I struggled to make plans. I struggled to let myself dream. I struggled to believe that it was safe to get excited about the future. Because when you've had the ground pulled out from underneath you once, it's hard to trust it won't happen again. There is a part of cancer that teaches you to brace yourself. Even when things are going well, there can still be this quiet fear sitting in the background, telling you not to get too comfortable, not to get too hopeful, not to look too far ahead. And that is why what I'm about to share feels so meaningful to me. If you haven't already seen it on social media, I got engaged, and I am just so happy. It's hard to explain how significant that moment felt, not just because I get to marry the love of my life, not just because I'm excited, but because of what it represents. It represents hope, trust, allowing myself to believe in a future again, choosing joy even after knowing heartbreak. It represents letting myself build a life instead of just surviving one. Over the last few episodes, I had dropped a few hints here and there about my boyfriend Jake, and now I get to say my fiance, which is still kind of wild and really exciting. And I just have to say, he is truly such an incredible person. He has been my rock. He has been one of my biggest supporters. He has been there through the ups and the downs, through the anxiety, through the scan days, through the emotions that come with loving someone whose life has been touched so deeply by illness. He has shown up for me with steadiness, patience, and a love in a way that means more to me than I could ever fully describe. He listens to every single episode before I release it. He gives me feedback. He encourages me. He supports the mission behind this platform. And most importantly, he loves me not in spite of my story, but with my whole story included. And that matters because dating when you have cancer or history cancer, it's not always easy. I've talked about that before on this platform. And if you have listened to my episode from Diagnosis to Date Night, then you know a little bit more about that journey. But there is a vulnerability that comes with letting someone into a life that has held so much fear, uncertainty, and pain. There are conversations you have to have that other people may never have to think about. There are worries that come up. There are questions about health, about longevity, and what the future could hold. And when someone chooses to love you fully in the middle of all of that, it's not something you take lightly. So, no, I do not take this engagement lightly. And I also know there may be people who hear this and think, wow, that was really fast, or it's only been a year. But the truth is, cancer completely changes the way you look at time. When you have had to face your own morality, when you have lived in hospital rooms, when you have had moments where tomorrow did not feel guaranteed, you stop making decisions based on what things are supposed to look like. You stop living for timelines that other people created. You stop assuming you have endless time to wait for the perfect moment. I have learned in the hardest way possible that life is not promised. So when something is real, when something is good, when something brings peace and certainty into your life, I do not believe in pushing it away just because it does not fit someone else's timeline. I knew this is the man I wanted to marry. I knew I did not want fear to make my decisions for me anymore. And for once, instead of shrinking back from the future, I wanted to run toward it. And that feels huge for me. Because 4 years ago, I was terrified I might not have much of a future at all. And now I'm here talking about wedding plans, about building a life with someone I love, about being excited for what is ahead. And that does not mean the fear has magically disappeared. Because trust me, it hasn't. It does not mean living with scans every 90 days is easy. It's not. It does not mean that all the hard parts of this journey are gone. But it does mean that fear no longer gets the final say. And that's so much growth for me if you know me personally. Over these last 4 years, life has changed so much. I've graduated school, I've worked, I've gone through different relationships, I've moved out, I've moved back in, I've met new people, lost people, learned hard lessons, found new strength, and grown into a version of myself that 19-year-old me could not have imagined. I've lived through heartbreak and healing. I've experienced pain, but I've also experienced so much beauty. I've laughed and I've cried. I've built this community. I've found purpose in places I never expected. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I met my person. I met my best friend. And I think that is what I really want this episode to be about. Yes, it's a life update. Yes, it's me sharing happy news. But more than that, it's a reminder that life does not stop after diagnosis. Life does not stop in treatment. Life does not stop in the waiting. It may look different. It may feel heavier. It may be far more uncertain than you ever wanted it to be. But life keeps moving. There's still room for joy. There's still room for love. There's still room for hope, for milestones, for laughter, for purpose, and moments you never thought you would get to have. And I think that is why this update means so much to me. Because for so long, my life felt like it lived on those 90-day scan intervals. But I have learned that while scans are a part of my life, they're not my whole story. Cancer is a part of my story, but it's not the end of it. And I am finally in a place where I can say that and really feel it. I also want to mention something that really impacted me, and I think about almost every single day. A little less than a year ago, Sue Dentinger gave me some of the best advice I have ever received. She told me, make the plans, go to the concert, book the dinner, say yes to life, plan the things 2 months in advance, live your life fully. And those words truly stayed with me, because sometimes when you have been through trauma, especially medical trauma, living fully can feel risky. Hope can feel risky, planning can feel risky. But what she reminded me of is that waiting to live is not living. And I have carried that with me ever since. So this season of my life feels really special. Not because everything is perfect and not because I suddenly have all the answers, but because I am allowing myself to embrace joy without apologizing for it. I am allowing myself to celebrate something beautiful. I am allowing myself to step into the future that once felt too scary to even picture. And I wanted to share that with you all because you have been such a meaningful part of my journey. You all have listened through the hard episodes, the grief-filled episodes, the uncertain episodes, the reflective episodes, and it feels really beautiful to be able to sit down and share something joyful, to share a milestone, to share a moment that feels full of life. This community has held space for me in so many seasons, and I never want to take that for granted. So truly, thank you. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of this roller coaster with me where my emotions change every 2 weeks. And thank you for letting me be honest on here. whether I'm showing up in grief and fear and hope or today in happiness. And with that being said, now that Jake is officially my fiance, I have given him permission to come on the podcast and record an episode with me. And I'm actually really excited for that because I think it will be such an honest and meaningful conversation to talk about how we met, what it has looked like to date while navigating cancer, and what it means to choose love in the middle of uncertainty. So stay tuned for that because I think that is going to be a really fun, special episode. But for today, I just wanted to come on here and share this part of my life with all of you. 4 years ago, I was staring at a future I could not imagine, thinking no one would want to be with the girl that had cancer. And today, I am still here, I'm still fighting, I am still building, and now I'm stepping into a new chapter that I once was not sure I would ever get the chance to see. And that is not something I will ever take lightly. Thank you guys so much for being here. As always, if this episode resonated with you or if you think someone in your life needs a little reminder that life can still hold beauty even after devastation, feel free to share this episode with them. And if you or someone you know would like to come on and share your story, or if you have a business inquiry that aligns with this mission, please feel free to reach out. I love all of you guys. I appreciate you, and I would chat with y'all next Wednesday.